the most popular. Jim Schwartz, by the way, interviewed with the Browns today for the defensive coordinator position. Tomorrow, it is going to be, most people say, the favorite for this job, and that is Brian Flores. I had the opportunity, I was very fortunate actually, that I submitted a question to Albert Breer for Monday Morning Quarterback, and he actually answered it. I asked him who he believed would be the Browns' next defensive coordinator. Now, the name on this list he listed was Brian Flores. And I want to read to you exactly what he said, because this gives a great picture of where we are in this process. He said, I really like their candidates, and I do think it's indicative to some degree of ex-Lions GM Bob Quinn's growing influence in the organization. That's interesting. 3 of the 4 guys interviewing were raised in the business by Bill Belichick, just like Bob Quinn. The one who doesn't have such ties is Seattle assistant Sean Desai, who is friendly with Kevin Stefanski and is a favorite of the Browns analytics team, and competed against the Browns coach 4 years in the NFC South. He continues to say, if I had to peg a favorite right now, I would probably go with Pittsburgh senior defensive assistant linebackers coach Brian Flores. And I have heard owner Jimmy Haslam is a fan of his. Now, Patriots linebackers coach Gerard Mayo has merit too, in that there has been a lot of coordinator-type functions to his job with the Patriots. He runs meetings, helps design the defense and game plans, and he could be a culture changer for a unit that, in an honest moment, Browns people would tell you they need on defense. Conversely, going with Jim Schwartz, whose connection to Belichick is actually from Cleveland, would represent 2 different things. The first would be scheme familiarity. What he would presumably bring is a lot closer to the Pete Carroll style of defense that Joe Woods ran the past 3 years in Cleveland. The second is a connection to Andrew Berry from the time the 2 were together in Philadelphia. And to end it, he says, so again, I'd say Brian Flores is probably the one, with the added benefit of such a hire kicking the legs out from underneath a division rival. We'll see what happens. So, gentlemen, we know Deshaun Watson likes Brian Flores. That has been quite obvious. He wanted to go to Miami to play for Brian Flores. Flores wanted him in Miami, and was the reason the Dolphins were trying to trade for him. How would you guys feel if Brian Flores became the Browns defensive coordinator?
I would love it. I just like guys who are proven in this league and who are real leaders of men, because I think that, obviously Jim Schwartz is great, and I'm sure he's incredibly respected. Brian Flores in Miami, when he was the head coach, had one of the best defensive units in football. Xavier Howard had how many interceptions in that defense? That defense was one of the best in the league when he was the head coach of it. And the simple fact is that he's a guy who brings in culture, he brings in grit, he brings in an identity, and he comes in and he immediately kind of creates I want this team to look like this. I want my team to play this hard, and they're going to play this hard. And he brings in a set of expectations for himself and for everybody else. And especially considering that, he has experience as a head coach of a football team. So bringing him in to only lead one side of the football means that he's going to get even more hands-on with that unit, really bring all that experience. And I think that he could be a perfect fit with all these guys, especially guys like Miles, guys like Denzel. He just seems like the kind of guy that you would want to be your defensive coordinator. It would be like having a second head coach on the team. Now, I know a lot of people might be afraid of that, but I think that it would be the perfect fit for it.
Definitely not afraid of that, because I think, depending on what they do at offensive coordinator, which we alluded to earlier, but this could be the guy that, if somehow stuff goes wrong with Kevin and they need to make a decision on Kevin, Brian Flores, Schwartz, even Mayo are those guys that come in as interim head coaches and kind of lead a team through something that's, you don't want to happen. So, but in terms of the defense, this is the move I would like. It's like him, or even when I heard about Mayo's name, I didn't even expect Mayo to come up for us until we heard it. But those are those two. That's that younger move you do, that culture changer. That's something that this defense needs. They need a new identity, a new culture, a new system to believe in. And I think Brian Flores definitely brings that. And I think he'd be well respected as well, right off the bat.
I'm a huge Brian Flores fan. He is a guy that would absolutely change the culture on that defense. And Brian Flores, some stats from his defenses. So when he was the Dolphins head coach, his defense blitzed at the highest rate in the NFL. That is 42.6%. He ran man defense at the highest rate in the NFL at 50%. The 11th best run defensive grade is 72.4. The 7th best run D grade. Oh, my bad. Team grade. 11th best overall team grade at 72.4. And some other statistics. Overall EPA allowed, minus 0.071, which is 6th best in the NFL. Success rate allowed, 43.2%. That was 6th in the NFL. Against the pass, his defenses were 3rd. His success rate was 45.9%, which is 6th. And against the run, he was 19th, and the success rate allowed was 13th at 38.7%. And those stats are courtesy of John Costco at Pro Football Focus. So Brian Flores is a guy I'm really interested in. Zach, I'm going to disagree from the standpoint. I don't think it's going to be difficult, and they're going to get one of their guys, I believe, but you also have to basically get these guys here. The one thing that coordinators don't want, they don't want to come into a position where a coach like is quickly has the possibility of being canned, because then what you're doing.
I was saying if something went wrong.
Well,
he's someone that could just take over.
But what I've seen is like the issue that the Browns have compared to some of these other like new jobs that are opening is there's not that sense of security that a potential assistant would have. So like, for instance, Arizona, Indianapolis, people have said some of these guys the Browns are interviewing could wait for those jobs because if someone wants to hire them, it's a good chance they're going to have a higher level of security, at least for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
That I think they're going to get one of these guys. But it's just something to keep in mind, because I think if things went south with Kevin, what you're going to see is you're going to see somebody that, like you saw in Denver. The reason Averho didn't take that job because there was no guarantee they were going to make him the head coach. And if there's no guarantee, someone's not going to want to hitch their wagon to that. And that's why Averho might not even be in Denver like after this. So just something to keep in mind. I'm a huge Flores fan. Before we get to our next candidate, keep in mind, guys, Brian Flores likes to run a 3-4 system. So just keep that in mind. That would not currently fit the Browns personnel, and they would have to make some moves in order to run that system. And Myles Garrett would turn into more a TJ Watt as a stand-up 3-4 edge. So
look what he's doing as a stand-up interior defensive lineman this year.
That's what's incredible.
Dude, like, I think Myles would love that. I personally think Myles would love that.
I think he would too.
I mean, Myles is really good at honestly, the funny thing is that he's really good at running people down. Like he's not like slow or anything. Like he can move off the line and really be like one of those guys who can get behind the line of scrimmage and make tackles like a linebacker. So, I mean, it probably wouldn't be the easiest transition. Like he probably wouldn't be something that we'd see very often, but I think it would be, I don't think he would be averse to it. I think that he would at least be open to the change if that was something that Brian Flores did want to implement.
Yeah,